जैसे अभी रिसेंटली गिफ्ट सिटी इवेंट में गए तो हमारा जैसे हमने चेक किया तो अपूर्वा जी वन ऑफ द बेस्ट फैकल्टी, हमें पता लगा कि वो ही इज द बेस्ट फैकल्टी। तो वहां पे पहले हम प्लान कर रहे थे कि वहां लोकल लेवल पे एक इवेंट ऑर्गेनाइज करें एक कम्युनिटी मीट में, बट आई फील कि हमारी कम्युनिटी इज स्कैटर्ड पैन इंडिया एंड जो लोग इस प्रोग्राम का इस सेशंस का बेनिफिट लेना चाहते हैं तो बहुत सारे लोग उस फिजिकल सेशन में मिस कर देते। सो हमने ये सेशन प्लान किया ऑनलाइन मोड में, राइट। सो एक एक सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट चीज हम लोग मैं इनिशियली सेशन में सबका थैंक्स करना चाहूंगा कि इस पिछले 5 साल की जर्नी में आप लोगों का जो सपोर्ट रहा, राइट। सो विद दैट सपोर्ट एक तो हम लोग एक डिसेंट नंबर में ग्रो कर रहे हैं, और एफपीएसबी की तरफ से पहले उन्होंने हमें प्रीमियम एजुकेशन प्रोवाइडर रिकॉग्नाइज किया, एंड इस रिसेंट इवेंट में उन्होंने चैंपियन एजुकेशन प्रोवाइडर का हमें जैसे एज एन हरमिंदर गर्ग को मेरे को एज ए अवार्ड दिया। तो ये जो सब पॉसिबल हुआ है तो वो आप सब लोगों को की सपोर्ट की वजह से पॉसिबल हुआ है। सो आई वुड रियली लाइक टू थैंक्स एवरीवन फॉर दैट, राइट। और ये जो वीक चल रहा है हमारा, ये वीक जो है फाइनेंशियल प्लानिंग, वर्ल्ड फाइनेंशियल प्लानिंग वीक चलता है। सो दिस इज वर्ल्ड फाइनेंशियल। सो आप देखते होंगे कि जो अभी अहमदाबाद का इवेंट जो था 4th to 11th, सो दिस इज वर्ल्ड फाइनेंशियल प्लानिंग वीक। सो इस समय फाइनेंशियल प्लानिंग के ऊपर या कॉन्सेप्ट्स के ऊपर अवेयरनेस सेशंस हैं। सो दिस सेशन इज राइट, इस केस में हमारे साथ टीना रावल है। शी इज हेड ऑफ स्ट्रेटेजिक अलायंसेस इन एफपीएसबी इंडिया, राइट। So she will just brief you about the initiative from FPSB side, right? So then we will start the main session. I'll give you Apoorva's introduction and then we take it forward. So over to you, Tina. Please take the session.
Thank you so much, Harminder. Thank you so much for having today. I hope I'm audible now.
Yes, you are.
You are.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining the call today and having me. I'm very excited. Firstly, congratulations, Harminder, for the very well-deserved award. We definitely had our India Financial Planning Conclave recently, that too in GIFT in association with IIFSCA, where we spoke about the scope and the opportunities that our CFP professionals have in the coming times in GIFT itself and many more. The success of the event is still being talked about on the platforms, and I would really request you, if you haven't already seen some of our bites, please follow our channels and you can look at that. Before we start this session, I would also like to share that we have entered an MOU with IIFSCA, which is the regulator at GIFT, and under which we are going to provide them with the talent for the requirements that are coming in the GIFT in the near future as well as the coming future. As you are aware that 750 plus firms have already been established in the GIFT. It's a very sprawling area that is being developed in over 1,000 acres, and many organizations, international banks, firms, family offices, so many financial organizations have already set up and established their organizations in the GIFT. The kind of requirement that they have in the field of financial planning and financial services is immense, humongous, I would rather say. And for that, we have signed up with them to ensure that we provide them with the right talent, and that is why creating more and more opportunities for our CFP professionals. Hence, IIFC and we go hand in hand, where Harminder, in his endeavor of doing the fantastic job of creating new CFP professionals, we are trying our level best to make sure that you get equal amount of opportunities in areas like GIFT, so that your futures are secured and you have more opportunities professionally. Whilst I'm sure that you all are set to hear Apoorva and he would be throwing more light on it, there are certain things that in my recent interview with Dipesh, the director of IIFSCA, it was discussed about how our CFP professionals can benefit in terms of jobs in the field, and also if you want to set up your practice, then in which all areas you have the opportunity. Those bites are available on your YouTube channel. I understand I have lesser time to talk to you today, and that is why I'm not mentioning that in detail, but that is available on our YouTube channel. So if you want to know more about the gift, which is very much the crux of the topic today, please have a look at that bite as well from Dipesh to know more. However, I wish you all the best for your future endeavors, and thank you so much once again for having me. Looking forward to the session. Thank you, Harminder. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Tina. एंड आई थिंक अपूर्वा जी, आपकी इंट्रोडक्शन की जरूरत नहीं है। इंडस्ट्री में आप लोगों को, आप बहुत सारे लोग ऑलरेडी आपसे फैमिलियर हैं। सो मैंने देखो एक चीज आपसे डिस्कस करना चाहूंगा कि इंडस्ट्री में देखो बहुत सारे एसेट मैनेजमेंट कंपनीज हैं हु आर डीलिंग इन दिस गिफ्ट सिटी प्रोडक्ट्स, राइट? बट वहां पे हमारे पास कहीं ना कहीं जो नॉलेज है वो बायस्ड हो जाती है कि कहीं स्पेसिफिक एएमसी से अगर हम डील कर रहे हैं तो जो स्पीकर आता है कई बार वो स्पीकर अपने प्रोडक्ट्स पे बात करता है ना? सो यहाँ पे जो हमारा ऑब्जेक्टिव है अपूर्वा जी को इनवाइट करने का, ही इज लाइक एन इंडिपेंडेंट हु इज बेसिकली कंसल्टेंट टू लॉट ऑफ जो प्रोडक्ट मैन्युफैक्चरर्स जो कि गिफ्ट सिटी में जो प्रोडक्ट्स डिजाइन करते हैं, है ना? तो वहां पे अपूर्वा इज प्रोवाइडिंग कंसल्टिंग सर्विसेज टू देम। तो इसलिए जो बैकग्राउंड पे हमारे को ये गिफ्ट सिटी के बेसिक्स में तो हम समझ पाते हैं, लेकिन एज एन सीएफपी प्रोफेशनल, एज ए वेल्थ मैनेजर ऑफ ए क्लाइंट लेवल पे ये प्रोडक्ट्स की फिटमेंट कैसे करनी है हमें, एग्जैक्टली हाउ वी कैन फिट दीज प्रोडक्ट्स इन आवर क्लाइंट्स पोर्टफोलियो, है ना? तो वो वाला पार्ट आई थिंक अपूर्वा जी से बेटर कोई नहीं बता सकता। So Apoorva ji, thank you so much for giving such your precious time. So please, over to you. You can take it forward the session. So मैं just एक brief दे देता हूँ। Audience जो है ये हमारा जो CFP में जो लोग हैं, mostly जो लोग एक decent amount of wealth manage करते हैं, right? और decent amount of experience है। So उन लोगों को हमने invite किया है इस session में, right? So that's the main objective of accordingly matlab you can flow down your session in that case.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Harminder, for this opportunity as well, and nice summing up by Tina on what FPSB also does. So and obviously this is an audience which will value all these services a lot more. Very quickly, before I put my presentation on the screen, in my presentation, I've taken one care that I'm not going to speak about any specific product, right? Because the objective is not to talk about products here. The objective is to actually understand the offerings and all little better from a different perspective. So we'll have that. And of course, I'm keeping reasonably good time for Q&A, because with this kind of audience, I'm pretty sure that there will be many questions that we will have towards the end. So let me quickly put the screen on. I presume the screen is visible.
Yes, it is visible.
Yes, yeah. Okay. So what I'm going to speak about is alternates, not only investments, but even jurisdictions. And I call IIFSC as an alternate jurisdiction because we are all used to SEBI regime and India products for a very, very long time. Now, how does IIFSC differ as compared to the domestic regime? And what are these jurisdictions? How does it operate? And what are the other options that we have? Is what we'll be speaking as a good part of this presentation. The presentation may run into multiple slides, but I will only focus on selective slides which are important. And then during the Q&A, if there is any need for me to go back to and refer some other slides, we will. Few things that I assume, and I'm absolutely open if there are any other changes in this. As a profession, if somebody chooses financial planning, I am pretty sure that whether you are an MFD or an RIA, or the nomenclature as per SEBI could be whatever, but you are advisor at heart. Otherwise, nobody would have joined CFP per se. So your interest would be to manage the well-being of your client families. And that is the reason why you've all come in here. I will still speak a bit about alternate investments before I jump into IIFSC as a jurisdiction. The objective is clearly to create awareness. I'm going to stay away from any specific product discussion because that would be unfair on a forum like this for me to speak. Very quickly, I've been around in GIFT for almost about 3 years now. Personal part, let's move ahead and let me still straight jump to something which is more important. As a percentage to GDP, India has got a fairly decent savings rate. It's not only about simple savings, but it's about too many things which is around this. And that is the reason why we have always believed and maintained that alternate investments are very important and integral part, especially when you start managing money of overseas investors. So without the adequate understanding of alternate investments, mere traditional investment options will not work that nicely for international investors. I'm first talking about the India-specific numbers, how alternate investment fund has found its space in HNI portfolios. And as you could see from this graph, there is a very steady increase in terms of allocation towards alternate investment funds in a typical HNI portfolio. Right? This is by far one of the fastest growing segment. Even if you look at the bottom half of it, we are all very, very happy with the kind of retail participation, SIP flows and everything. But yet one thing which is very clear is that AIFs as a category has outgrown many of those. Why do we choose alternate investments? There is a big difference. There was a survey which we had conducted some time back with close to about 150 odd wealth managers across India. In Indian context versus the graph that you see here, which is an international context, is very, very different. Indian distributors, Indian wealth managers believe that you invest into alternate investment to earn higher returns. Even the investor is told that way, investor presumes it this way. But the real reason of alternate investment is meaningful diversification. The next important reason is lower correlation. And third comes higher returns. The Indian mindset is very different, but I'm pretty sure that over a period of time, there will be a good level playing field and people will start looking at this more from diversification avenue rather than high returns. If we again, and each and every slide of mine will have data source so that it can be independently verifiable. If you look at most of the HNIs and ultra HNI portfolios, alternate investments have a significant percentage weightage. This, let me highlight, this is a global survey. This is not the Indian context. In Indian context, we do not have 26% allocation to AIFs. In India, we are at about 16, 17%. But this is a change which is what we believe is going to happen in the days to come. Even institutions internationally, a good percentage of the institutions have a fairly good allocation allocated for alternate investment. This doesn't mean that Asia Pacific, 77% of the institutional money goes in alternates. It only means that 77% of the institutions have allocation for alternates, right? So we normally believe that certain kind of organizations will not have allocation for alternate investments because they are pension funds, they are endowment funds, they want to remain invested in risk-free kind of options, but that's not correct. So the data clearly suggests that there is an allocation, which you will see for alternates practically everywhere. Now, again, we need to look at the Indian context for everything, and then we will come to the later part. Very quickly, we'll run through this. My intention is not to run a quiz, so I'm not asking this question to anyone. But if we have to take a guess, which are the sectors or themes which have been top performers in 3 years so far? This is a question where a lot of people have missed out because of our relative lack of orientation to data. But the answer is, as we see on the screen, right? We normally tend to form an opinion very quickly that there is some particular segment where it's too much of froth. Many times, this is the grapes are sour kind of a story. If you miss the bus, you start feeling that there is some segment which is not doing well. Numbers speak something very different. And let's have some respect for numbers. Not that I'm suggesting people should look at SME IPOs. I'm just trying to highlight data and only data says that there is something which is like shining across India in each and every segment. No one better than you as an audience to know how mutual funds have grown, right? If I look at the PMS data, whether it is client count, whether it is discretionary AUM, whether it is percentage of total AUM to discretionary AUM, everything, we've been doing excellently well, right? So PMS as a category has done exceedingly well in this period. AIFs, we all by and large know what the category of 3 AIFs are. So let me jump to numbers. AIF industry growth is right in front of us. Just look at the column of commitment in the total segment first. And we are at an insane number of AIF AUM. And look at the growth that has happened in the last 12 or 13 years, right? It's been absolutely brilliant. Now comes the important part, and I will spend some time because this is something which is very critical when we go to the gift city part of it. And why do we talk about gift cities? Because we need to understand what international investors look at when they look at investing in India. But before that, let's look at alternate investment fund as a category. You look at all total of 1,402 AIFs that have got registered as on 30th of September. Bulk of it is in the unlisted space. Private equity, venture capital, and angel funds account for 53% of the total AIFs. Hand on heart, if we just look at and check, most of the wealth managers are still confined to AIFs which are in the listed equity space, right? If most of the people, when we interact with, we know that they will do an XYZ AIF, which is again in listed equity, long only as such. Long only and hedge funds put together, which is where the Indian listed equities come in, accounts for only 17%, or 17.45% to be precise, as the exact number, of total allocation in the AIF space. So bulk of the AIF is outside of what we normally look at and normally we do. Reason why I'm saying is, if we are not in the full circle, we are missing out a significant part of AIF, is what we are trying to highlight, right? Why this happens also, there is a very natural thing. There is nothing wrong. There is not a single wrong decision taken by a wealth manager, I presume. But the way it works is, if I am a wealth manager and I'm comfortable with an XYZ AMC for mutual fund business, if the same AMC comes with an AIF tomorrow and launches their own AIF product, it is a natural thing for me to look at that AIF as my first step. And therefore, I convert myself into also somebody who starts offering AIF meaningfully to my client. I'm not against any kind of AIFs. I'm not highlighting the pros and cons here. I'm just saying one thing. Remember, the best of the mutual funds may not necessarily be the best of the PMSs. Best of the PMS houses are not necessarily the best for AIFs. Every category has different winners. We need to identify who are better players in each of these segments and work with them rather than working in a traditional way, because alternate by very name itself is non-traditional. You cannot have a traditional approach for a non-traditional product category. Again, highlighting, I'm not against listed equity long only AIFs, but that is what is available in mutual funds also, in diversified mutual funds. That same thing available in PMS as well. It is just the ticket size difference in most often cases. But a real meaningful thing comes across if you start looking at this pie chart a little more holistically and say, do I have any of these products in each of these segments in my armory, so that tomorrow if there's a client requirement of a different type, I can offer it accordingly. Now, if I look at the way in which each of these categories have grown, or year on year, the kind of growth that we have seen in AIF, there is no demonetization effect, there is no COVID effect, there has been one straight line growth that we have seen in this space. And that in the previous slide, we have seen how decent and how consistent it has been. Upwards of 40% CAGR for an industry growth over a decade is remarkable. Right? Needlessly, but just to mention, Mumbai has been the biggest contributor in terms of producing number of AIFs. No wonder, because Mumbai remains a financial capital by a huge margin. If I look at each of these categories year on year, the same thing, it gives a lot of comfort that this industry is growing and growing fast. And this excludes, now this is where the first real reference of Gift City comes in. This is excluding 124 AIFs that are registered in Gift City. Right? If I add this, then this number becomes even more bigger. Again, I spoke about SME in the past. That also as a segment has done very well. Gold has been on a rise and a continuous rise for a very long time. In fact, gold is doing better than most of the benchmark indices also, right, in the last couple of years. Real estate has been up and up. But here comes the most important slide according to me. If I look at outbound remittances, Indian investors investing money outside. Look at the graph with blue bars. This is remittance towards investments. This remittance has grown exceedingly well in the last 3 years. It has been on a rise for the last 5-7 years, but particularly in the last 3 years, it has done exceedingly well. We thought that after introduction of TCS, the tax collected at source, possibly the investment overseas will slow down, because why would an investor pay 20% of TCS for me to invest money outside of India? But even these numbers have been doing very well. All the previous slides will talk about India's story, why India is doing very well overall. I'm not talking about listed equity alone. Each and every segment has done exceedingly well in this period. If we as individuals have not grown, we have to introspect and figure out why have we not grown. Because these are times where tailwinds have really supported all of us. We could not have asked for a better decade than what we are into today. But understand one thing. This graph, which indicates that even the outbound remittances are huge, clearly indicates that we are living in a world where the liquidity is so much that the investor is definitely looking at options anywhere across. And investor is in the mood of diversification. If India's story is so great, which it is, and if India's story is so great as we start speaking about, as you look at the numbers, economic numbers point of view, we have outbeaten UK now to become the 5th largest. With all this, why are still wealthy Indian investors investing money outside and in pure investments? I'm not talking about travels. I'm not talking about LRS in general. It clearly means that the investors are looking at diversification in as many things as possible. Now, with this backdrop, what is very important is if this remittances continue this way, these are all outbound remittances where government will lose dollars for an Indian investor to invest outside. This was the genesis for Gift City to be created, that you should get money from overseas so that India gets dollars. And there is no dollar outflow on a net-net basis. That is the reason why Gift City got created. But before that, and to sum up on the alternates, there are a few challenges that we see for alternates. Relatively poor understanding of alternates amongst intermediaries is one important reason why alternates still have not done so great. There are primary objectives which are missing according to us. Alternate investments are meant for meaningful diversification and not just for higher returns. You invest in alternates to get non-traditional investment options, not for the traditional ones, ideally speaking. Another very important thing is one must have a sufficiently good eye on data. There are a few facts which we need to know. First is HNIs are definitely interested in beyond traditional products. Time has come even for a financial planner to think something different and have a little wider product offering for them to be able to service the requirement of the investor a little better. Okay. There's one example which I will give. I should have put this across on the screen as well. But a couple of years back, there was a Time magazine cover where there was a young boy, hardly about 3-4 years of age. And the cover page says that this boy will live 142 years. Now, that is a medical forecast, which was made by some agency. We all know that we are all going to live a little longer than the previous generation. Now, this is where CFPs were one of the very important things that all of us are into, is to plan for retirement. We need to have enough kitty with us, post-retirement life, if it is going to be long enough. And therefore, you can't get away by saying that I want to give only safe product to the people. You need to blend safer product with regulated and calculated risk of alternates for you to be able to generate the adequate returns which are required for an investor of today. One more thing which we need to remember is the risk appetite of investors have changed over the last decade. Our ability to take risk has gone up significantly compared to what about 10 years back. Tier 2 cities have picked up AIF very nicely in the recent times. So now AIF is not about only the metro locations any longer. And past performance have least relevance in most alternate investment options, which people miss out. Our traditional style is looking at CAGR returns for last 5 years. We might look at rolling returns. We might look at drawdown times. We might have information ratios, everything. Those things might not work in this. But with this backdrop of the previous slide, which I spoke about, let's move to the Gift City part. I'm skipping the startup part because that will become a little too lengthy for us to speak about. But one thing, we just about 3 days back touched 150,000 number of startups in this country. One more asset class, which we can't ignore, is what we believe. But I'm not going to talk much about individual products or individual asset classes. Let me jump to what is more relevant in name of Gift City. Before that, there's only one slide which I would want to run. How private markets differ than the public markets. So this is one very simple kindergarten slide which I use in some of my presentations. If I ask this to any investor that pick and choose a plant which you would want to invest in, most often the investor will prefer the last plant, saying the plant where you see the fruits is the safest bet for you to invest in. And absolutely true, this is the safest one for someone to invest in. I'm just trying to say how mindsets differ, and we need to be open enough for everything, is all that I'm trying to convey here. Now, suppose if I say that this plant is available for 1,000 rupees, and you decide to buy this plant called Series B. My next question would be, what will be the value of this plant 5 years down the line if you keep watering this and do whatever? Possibly 2,000, 3,000, maybe 4,000. Because this is a fully grown plant, it will grow to even a little bigger, and therefore it will fetch you a good value. So after 5 years, this plant of 1,000 rupees can potentially become 3,000. What we say is that private market investors think very differently. Instead of buying a plant for 1,000 rupees at this level, they buy a packet of 100 seeds and plant 100 seeds. Wait for 5 years for some of the plants to become a Series D plant. And possibly even if that count is 10, sell that 10 plants for 10,000 rupees to make more money. You don't have to worry of the remaining 90 which collapsed. The mindset is all that I'm trying to convey. I'm not trying to convey which is good or bad. But the mindset is something which we need to understand. And as advisors, if we don't understand the nuances of products, we will not be able to advise correctly, is my only fear. With this, let's come to jurisdictions. What do we mean by? Just a journey back, just about a decade back, this is how Gift City was looking like. A lot of you have visited Gift City recently, if not all, right? And you've seen a very different Gift City. The dream is, of course, very different. Today, we are somewhere in between. But a lot of things have changed in last decade. So what are those? What exactly do we mean by IFSC? This refers to, so in very simple terms, I'm not even using the textbook jargon. An IFSC, in simple terms, is an international jurisdiction created within your own country, where you carry out international transactions. It's as simple as this, right? Technically speaking, when I pay salaries to my staff, I have to pay salaries in dollars because there are no rupee transactions that I can do in IFSC jurisdiction, the fact that I'm operating from there, which means that I'm not allowed to do any national or domestic business sitting out of Gift City, legally speaking. Okay. Let's look at some of the global jurisdictions which exist. If you go to Gift City, they will speak about Gift City. And great, it's a great jurisdiction. But let's also understand and very quickly look at some of the other popular jurisdictions that exist in the world. Most popular ones, at least for Indians, if I look at, would be something like a Mauritius or a DIFC or Cayman Islands, which are the three most popular things that we keep hearing from various sources. How does Gift City differ as compared to others? First is an Indian investor, and we all know that Gift City and the products in Gift City are predominantly meant for overseas investors, including NRIs, to invest their money into India. So it is known as inbound investment jurisdiction. An Indian investor or an Indian NRI living anywhere across the world will have far better understanding and affinity to invest via Gift City than investing via Mauritius or a Cayman Islands or a DIFC. Right? And therefore, we have a reason to believe that Gift will be emerging to be one of those top destinations for a foreigner to come in and invest into. Each and every jurisdiction have their own unique pluses and minuses. I'm not going to get into too detail of each of these jurisdictions. There are some which are known to be the best from a regulatory standpoint. There are some which are very loose from a regulatory standpoint. But a normal Indian investor will have a preference for Gift for simple reason that best of the India-based managers would not want to open up in Bermuda or Qatar, but they would want to be operating out of a jurisdiction close to them, which is Gift. And therefore, this will offer much more variety of products to an NRI who is looking at investing in India. I will still be very frank enough in terms of saying the pros and cons of Gift as on today, and as I see how things are going to change in my next slide. Let's speak about who are the entities and how do people operate in Gift. So there are 124 fund management entities that are registered in Gift as on date. Now, one thing which I would want to highlight, and I'm pretty sure all of you would be aware of, but let me still give this a brief explanation. The difference between SEBI and difference between IFSC is extremely visible if I am a fund manager. For example, I'm thinking about myself as somebody who is moving out of mutual fund management entity and now getting into a fund management activity of my own. In Mumbai, if I am there, my first call I need to take is whether I want to start a PMS or I want to start an AIF. Then I will consult somebody who is providing ancillary services and say that help me with getting the license of PMS or a license for AIF. For every license, there is a separate requirement. PMS is a separate requirement. AIF is a separate requirement. I launch my second scheme, I will have to file my papers all over again with SEBI. Again, the second time I will have to give my own personal profile. I have to give all my educational qualifications, everything all over again to SEBI for the third or the fourth or the fifth fund also. And the same amount of paperwork is what I will have to undergo. IFSC took one very simple call. They said, let's regulate the fund management entity. So if Apoorva Vora is the person who is launching a fund, let's regulate Apoorva Vora. Then if he wants to create a PMS or an AIF, doesn't really matter. Whether I'm compliant, whether I'm ethical or not, whether my supporting documents that I provide to the regulators are good or bad, that decides my license. After the license, what I want to do with the license, what kind of product I want to launch is very much up to me, for me to decide. It's not something that I have to reapply for in a big way. It is more FYI kind of stuff. I do have to give 7 days, 10 days notice for regulator to give a clearance, but then that's all. So it's much faster for me as an entity to launch one after the other schemes if I operate out of the Gift. The 124 entities that are regulated collectively have done close to about 150 odd different products, right? But there is no number which IFSC publishes in terms of number of products being rolled out. So I'm just going by what is easily available in the public domain. And I'm not using even my own personal data sources to figure out how many actual products are there. I'm just focusing on entities first. Then you have ancillary service providers, which are 63, that include someone like us as well, who help someone to create AIFs or who help someone to set up distribution shops and everything in the gift. That's another stuff. You have about 29 banks, 22 insurance intermediaries, 17 portfolio managers. Practically speaking, there are few who have multiple names in this, but there are very few actual portfolio managers in the PMS sense who operate out of that place. And there are only 10 registered distributors, of which unique names are only about 4 or 5 as on date. Right? So there are not too many distributors who have yet started the operations. However, we are now seeing the first signs of distributor interest coming in gift in a big way. Now, what are the kind of products which exist? Most common product which everybody has rolled out, or most of the people wanting to roll out, would be fund of funds. Again, on a no-name basis, if I'm an XYZ mutual fund, I would prefer to roll out a fund of funds where I take the money from overseas investors and allocate the money to my own different schemes and give a basket of my own schemes to a global investor. I'm not here to judge what is good, bad, ugly. It is the independent view of that particular AMC to decide how they want to attract the global investor. However, I do have a small personal view, and that is the reason why I'm highlighting the word personal here. Think about whenever it is gift, don't think the way you think. Think about how the global investor will think about investing. The global investor is used to investments in ETFs. They take ETFs call, usually, in the most common way. If you give them a fund of fund and say that give $150,000 to this fund of fund, and we will allocate money to a large cap, mid cap, small cap, flexi cap in this and this proportion, you are forcing a global investor to come in a fixed asset allocation decided by you as a fund manager. Global investors have a very different way of looking at this. There are some who prefer to take adequate risk. They might want to take mid cap and a small cap risk because their orientation is much longer. There are some who want to mimic only the benchmark. They prefer more large cap centric stuff only. We have a reason to believe that most of those AMCs who have launched fund of funds today are trying out with fund of funds, and so that they get more AUM in the domestic mutual fund indirectly. But their intention should be, and possibly could be, to eventually raise money into different schemes which are managed also out of gift. Here, what happens is you are actually speaking not managing money. You have an entity in gift, you are allocating money to your existing scheme. So your role is restricted to an allocator. With all due respect to AMCs, when AMC plays the allocator role, they are entering into the domain of a distributor, because even a distributor's job is to allocate money. Whether the investor should have 30%, 40%, or 50% in large cap is better decided by an advisor than an AMC telling me. I'm not against fund of funds. I am again repeating. But as a product category, and I'm just highlighting categories and the thought process behind launching these categories, could be that you want to try something out in Gift City, therefore you start with fund of funds. I have a reason to believe that all these AMCs will come with interesting product ideas very soon, and they will start managing money differently. You have a lot of other products which are long-only equities, but a lot of products have announced, very few have been able to raise capital. I don't know how many of these people would know, but there is one regulatory requirement which is posing a big challenge to people who operate out of Gift City and who run their own funds. You need to raise $5 million of money in the first 3 months for you to be able to launch this scheme without penalties and run it beyond a point. Now, with again, I don't want to take names, but think about the top 2 or 3 names in Indian asset management business. They are significantly big names in India. But the moment you go to US or the moment you go to any other country internationally, and you talk about that you come from an XYZ brand, with all due respect, in US, there are 25 other bigger brands and what your best brands are for an investor to allocate the money. If I am a US investor, I will make a choice whether this fund from India is good enough, or I give money to Fidelity or someone else who also runs an India fund. And therefore, I'm entering into a competition with some of the biggest of names internationally. This is where we believe that the game becomes a little tricky. If you have to raise 5 million in a short span of time, a lot of effort needs to be done by distribution community first before you are actually able to raise that kind of money. And the reason why out of 124 fund management entities that exist, my guess is, and this number might be varying by a small percentage, 5% here or there, but not more than 15 to 20% of the entities have been successfully been able to raise money from overseas. Others are struggling as of now to raise money. So therefore, there is a lot more hand in glove which is required between a distributor and an asset management company or a fund management entity for this to really become very successful. The challenge is the best category for anyone to invest in is something which the Indian distribution community is not very strong about, which is the long short funds or hedge funds. International investors are quite used to hedge fund investments. In India, if someone is investing in long short fund, the Indian investors pay 42% of tax. But the same long short fund, if managed by GIFT or within the GIFT jurisdiction, you end up paying zero tax on this. So a global investor has a major advantage of investing in a long short fund. This, unfortunately, is a category which Indian distributors, wealth managers, or RIAs have not been able to convey to their overseas investors very nicely because of lack of adequate understanding in this space. Right? The other funds which exist in GIFT are typical credit funds or a PEVC fund. But again, PEVC fund is again one more area where the wealth management community still needs a little deeper understanding. One of the most successful name from GIFT City was able to raise close to about 2,200 crores of INR equivalent in dollar terms from overseas in less than a month. They are not an asset management company. It's a name which 50% of the audience might not be aware of. But this private equity firm was able to raise that kind of money. Why? Because they were able to map the investors internationally before the product was launched. If there is adequate homework done well in advance, it's not too difficult. You have angel funds and real estate funds also that operates out of GIFT now. Right? This is where I would summarize, and now I'm open to Q&As if we have any.
So, Apoorva, I think this is very complex topic, and I think you have make it very simple in that way that actually, right? So, how these products are actually, so all of us have a good number of NRI clients with us, whom we are, and they have a good amount of wealth to invest. But because we have no such knowledge, right, in a right format, that we can propose them that you can invest your international money, your money in through GIFT City and make some good profits, right? So that's like, look, in India, when we discuss like long short funds, right? So in AIF, the person is need to pay MMR, which is around 39 to 42% in that case. It's very big chunk which is going into the taxes.
Absolutely.
But for the same level of client, you are saying that if you have a client in US, right, or maybe in any country, and that client want to invest, right? So just one point for my understanding, ki in case, that fund manager will invest in Indian derivative market by using that funds and make more money from Indian market.
Correct. And the NRIs will get benefit, yes.
That's amazing, I think. This is like one point I get, which is quickly pick it up, that कि हम लोग जो अभी SEBI report publish करता है कि 10% people make money and 90% people are losing money in derivative markets. So who are those 10%? So those are proprietary funds and those big names, institutions who have information. And we are talking about those 10% that NRI clients is handing over their funds to those 10% people. And then
No, Harvinder, let me explain.
yes,
Slight difference,
okay,
and I'll highlight the difference first.
okay,
There are quite a few asset managers in India who operate long-short funds,
okay.
which means essentially hedge funds.
Hmm.
Now, if I, as an Indian manager managing Indian investors' money, I'm able to perform better than the benchmark in my long-short fund in India also. But because of the taxation, the net impact is such that I am not able to present myself as being able to generate adequate alpha post-tax to somebody.
Okay.
Correct. Now, the advantage if I manage overseas investors' money operating out of GIFT, participating in long-short funds in India. See, what you are mentioning about where the 90% lose, that number is even actually more than 90%. And that is something which is more to do with high frequency trades, where we are not able to match up to the complex algos that international fund managers are able to generate. Therefore, most of the people's inefficiency is taken advantage of by those players and they make money, which we are not able to. This is one aspect where when I'm talking about a typical case of long short fund, I'm not referring to something like that.
Okay. Okay.
So that is completely different. Like, for example, you might be aware, this has been in news for very long, but a company by name Jane Street, a US-based derivative specialist, that hedge fund had 2-member team here in India. And the 2 members generated in one single year a profit of 8,600 crores out of their trades. That is all predominantly high frequency trading and all. That is not long short fund. But if you look at long short funds in India, they don't lose money. They are not amongst those retail investors that we speak about. The arbitrage is of taxation, which is where GIFT has an advantage. That's the only thing I'm trying to say.
Okay. So mother, in that product basket, like, so this hedge fund is little bit a different category, है ना? और ये थोड़ा सा different है उससे. ठीक है, great. So Anand ji, unmute करके आप you can ask your question, please.
Thank you, thanks, Apoorva sir, for the very valuable information in this webinar. I have a question that, as you told that there are 10 registered distributors in GIFT City only. So, do you have details of that? Can you share the names of the cities from where they are?
I can comfortably share that. Yes, not an issue.
Yeah, can I have that information?
Just a sec. So that's available in the IIFC website itself.
Okay.
It's in public domain.
These distributors are MFDs or what else?
MFD, but so if I can open up the screen, let me do it right away. Just a sec.
So these are into distribution space, not from advisory space.
Yes.
And secondly, side by side, Apoorva, my second question is that I have talked to an AMC regarding the registration in GIFT City, and when I went through their products, they are only having fund of funds over there, and that too, like they have a mutual fund, they have a mutual fund scheme in a normal business, like जैसे हम mutual fund में business में कोई normal उनका scheme है, so they have that scheme in fund of fund. They have only that one scheme in fund of fund. So our investor has to invest the total money in that scheme only. So that seems to be very strange. That एक आदमी एक ही scheme में इतना पैसा क्यों डालेगा?
So Anandji, that is exactly the point. एक तो पहली चीज ये, let me explain. आप जो बोल रहे हो कि एक आदमी, why would they invest in one single scheme? I have a slight disagreement on this because global investors' average ticket size is much larger than Indian investors. So what is a good average ticket size for an Indian investor? We don't have to look at this. You have to look at it from a different angle and look at more from the international investors' mindset. Uske liye $150,000 is not a very large amount. And I can bet my money on, if you start talking to few people, you will realize that kind of ticket size is very easy to get from overseas. That's point number one. Second, let me first share this screen to you. And these are the name of distributors that you see on the screen. Now, practically, if I talk about some of these entities like HDFC or an ICICI bank, leave that aside, there are hardly 3 or 4 other MFDs who are operating out of this.
Mostly these are banks or financial institutions?
Mostly those.
That was my
And there is only one player who is actually an international player who has got in and taken a distribution license in India. Rest are all Indians.
Thanks.
Yeah, please.
Just one second. So Deepak ji, please ask your question.
Yeah, very good evening, Apoorva sir. It was nice enriching session.
Good evening. Yes, thank you.
I have a couple of questions.
Please.
First, it is regarding to taxation that you said that any overseas investor who is investing in India through GIFT City doesn't have to pay any tax. So the taxation
no. So first of all, there will be a TDS which will be deducted, which he or she can set off against, in their own respective countries.
Okay. In the domicile country in which they are currently servicing, they have to pay tax over there at whatever the tax slab they are into.
Correct.
Okay, but in
and
India,
there
won't be
there would be no tax in India. No.
Okay. Now my second question is that I have been dealing into this GIFT City products, but I haven't currently sold any, but I have registered myself. But I haven't come across, like you already said, that kind of very unique products. Everybody is offering fund of funds. So can you help us, identify some of the good, you can say investments who are already registered in GIFT Cities and are providing a different product than all other.
So there are, but unfortunately, I'll be very frank enough. The very objective of this call was not to talk about any specific product. So I'm keeping this more academic in nature, but there are these kind of options which are available, and possibly I will reach out to Harminder, or we could work out a mechanism where we would share some of the details to the larger benefit.
If you can help us through the websites also, then we can individually.
No, absolutely fine. Why?
Hardik in Apoorva's team, so he's managing. So I'll share the Hardik's number to you, right, Hannah? So whoever is interested, we will post the session. I think. So Hardik, are you with us in the call?
Yes, Hardik is there in this call.
So maybe can we share the number of Hardik along with the professional community members? If anyone want to know more about the products and things, they can connect with the Hardik in this case.
Sure, sir.
So that really helps everyone in that way in this case.
Right. Thank you, Apoorva. Thank you.
Please. Thank you.
Hardik, maybe you can put your number in the chat box if you're comfortable. I think maybe all people are maybe in that way relevant, ask you relevant queries. So I think maybe in that way, this will be a good proposition for both of us. Saurabh ji?
Correct. So Hardik has already put across his email ID and
number. Hi, Apoorji, I have 2-3 questions. I think what you're trying to say for the long short fund side is, let's say, take an example of a Helios fund. Helios have a long short fund which they run on the offshore side, where they say that the taxation is almost zero. They sell some stocks, they buy some stock, and effectively, let's say, 14% IRR of the fund, and they effectively post-tax return make 14%. But if they do the same fund in India, what happens is, instead of 14%, they have to pay tax at the rate of 35%, because 39% because it's under AIF category, which has the highest tax slab. 14 becomes 8-9%. So now you are saying in the same fund of the Helios is launched through GIFT City, that taxation will be nil, so to say, and the effective return for the client is 14%. right?
That's correct.
But this will be, as I understand, this will be under Cat 3 AIF rules. Then
That's correct.
they issue a K1 certificate or some certificate like that, because
Uh,
TDS complication हो जाएगा, because tax to trust level पे भी होगा.
Correct. So there will be K1 certificate which will be there. And all that regulatory side, GIFT has covered exceedingly well.
Okay.
So that is not an issue.
No,
There
but I'm
would be
saying,
no challenge to the investor from a taxation point of view in whichever jurisdiction he or she is.
okay. But my only thought was that Cat 3 doesn't have a taxation is charged at the trust level, right? Individual client के PAN पे तो वो आएगा ही नहीं, तो how the TDS certificate will come in picture?
So I will come back to you on this, but the point here is so Cat 3, the way we have seen it in India, and the Cat 3 here in GIFT will work slightly differently from a taxation point of view.
Okay, fair enough.
So this certificate will be enough for you to provide it to your CPA, and the CPA will do the needful.
Okay, but have you come across like long short fund which are India based? So I am just thinking there are two ways what happens in GIFT City. So what I've
So
seen
you're talking
over,
about like the one Helios that you spoke about, equivalent of that, are you referring of?
yes. So Helios has, I think, offshore product as well as onshore product on the long short
Correct.
side. So when you
Correct.
meet this team of Samir Road and team, they say that in India we are not able to do good or bad because the taxation eats away. We still
Correct.
make that 14%, 15%, which is good enough return for a long short fund. But they
Correct.
come to India, the post-tax return which client lies is not good. And then the blame
Correct.
goes to, let's say, the Samir Rora's team, because taxation eats the part.
Saurabhji, one more thing, it is not just taxation. While you are positioning any product internationally, you have to think about one more thing. And when I'm saying you, I'm talking this to the full audience here.
Right.
We have to think about one very important stuff. You should talk about a brand, or you should have as a selection criteria, keep this in mind. It should be a brand which will be acceptable to an overseas investor.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just taking an example so that we can understand about the Helios. It is
So
not
the
good or
point
bad.
is, no, I'm not even going what is good or bad. I'm just saying the biggest of the brand in India might not sell through internationally, but an international presence, somebody already having international presence.
Right.
And then you talk about that kind of a product, it will be an easier sell. So from reaching out to investors' perspective, just have this criteria in mind is the only additional stuff.
But what I've come across 4-5 funds, but like another debt fund, which is a credit fund again, based on a GIFT treaty. Now, what challenge is coming up? Like, I don't know, you have heard of the name of the Ruchir Sharma, which is used to work with Morgan Stanley, now Rockefeller international firm he's attached with. He has launched a fund. Okay. Now the challenge is, again, he has launched a fund which will have 20% of the exposure in India and across emerging market.
Correct.
Now the new challenge is, client is saying either I want to put 100% into India, right? Or if it's a NRI who is in India right now, okay, there are certain NRIs who are in India only, but they still want some dollar money, or they want some money, or let's say they were 5 years back, they were in US, so पैसा या Canada में था तो पैसा वहीं पे रह गया, डॉलर में है, right? So उसमें बड़ी complication हो जाती है, कोई clear structure वाले product options create ही नहीं हो रहे हैं, मतलब this is what I have understood. कहीं पे राउंड ट्रिपिंग का इशू आ जाता है, या मुझे लगता है माइट बी टू
सौरभ जी, जो भी जुरिस्डिक्शन नया होगा उसमें ये चैलेंज रहेगी, बिकॉज आज की डेट में प्रोडक्ट कम है.
Yes.
The same entity, if is going to launch 2 new products, one of the product will be 100% India dedicated. तो वो आपको थोड़ा उनको बेनिफिट ऑफ डाउट और बेनिफिट ऑफ टाइम दोनों देना पड़ेगा. The rest is okay.
Okay, so I think might be it's a very upcoming kind of a thing, and I think might be 6 months, 1 year down the line, a lot of people will come with the right kind of a structures.
I think within 6 months you will see a lot many structures like this. 6 महीना बहुत हो गया अभी.
But I think investor के perspective, another apprehension that I've come across, a lot of people have those of late. I think the new regulation which came is that I can open a bank account in GIFT City as well, which I think came 2-3 months back only. Now the new problem that I've come across, a lot of clients have started saying that rather than opening a bank account in GIFT City, because now the prerogative still remains with RBI. So let's take a chain, like, okay, let's say it's a HDFC bank in Delhi for me, HDFC bank in GIFT City, and HDFC have a foreign account also. Let's say not the HDFC, I don't think, but ICICI, Kotak and other banks have a offshore account, or a DBS bank. Now client have started having an apprehension. अगर मैं Canada अपना GIFT City में ही ICICI को पैसा भेज दूंगा, तो they will always have a look back. So most of the clients have
बिल्कुल.
a view that it's better that I should have a foreign account only, and then might be a fund selection can happen through GIFT City.
So very honestly, this is a hurriedly announced, stuff that you can open a bank account here in GIFT. आज की डेट में most of the banks are still not having full clarity in terms of what to do with the bank account and how to operate. उसमें टाइम जाएगा ही जाएगा.
बट पता है
100%.
एक और चैलेंज है कि अगर मैं यही अकाउंट लेट्स से डीबीएस दुबई खोलता हूं तो दे टेक 20-30 days.
Correct.
राइट अगर मैं गिफ्ट सिटी खोलता हूं एज ऑफ नाउ द क्लेम टू फेम फॉर आईसीआईसीआई और एचडीएफसी दैट इट विल बी एग्जीक्यूटेड इन 1 week. It will or not, I don't know. I haven't experienced it yet, but most of them are claiming this.
So I don't want to make specific biases, but I can only tell you one thing. Most of the people are showing more interest in terms of opening bank accounts in GIFT with foreign banks, not with Indian banks.
So
अगर आपको
on this
पैसा
thought,
डॉलर में ही रखना है तो आप इंडियन बैंक्स में क्यों पैसा रखो फिर?
नहीं तो उसमें भी मेरा एक और थॉट ये है कि why not open in DIFC only in Dubai rather than opening in
Always
GIFT City.
possible. Always a possibility. There is no harm.
Right? I can choose so basically when investing there are 3 parties, which is let's say one is client, second is bank, and third is the investment entity, which can be ABCD, PyTalk or Helios or XYZ, doesn't matter. So but I am able to understand clients are pretty much not comfortable having a bank account in GIFT City. They are comfortable that jurisdiction as a GIFT City for the investment entity instead of a Mauritius or the entities which you mentioned.
सौरभ जी, it will change only over a period of time. आज तो अभी announcement हुए इतना टाइम भी नहीं हुआ है. Maybe in 6 months' time, there will be something which will come out where the comfort of a local bank will start coming in. वो RM 5 बार फोन करेगा ना, 6th occasion आप बोलोगे चलो गिफ्ट में खोल देते हैं.
नहीं मेरे को लगता है क्लाइंट्स का आरबीआई का ज्यादा एप्रीहेंशन है कि ये जो 6 months वाला रूल है. सो लेट्स से देयर इज ऑलरेडी अ 6 months rule. If you don't deploy your money in 6 months, money has to come back to India shoes, right?
Correct.
So I am saying the another apprehension is कि मैंने कोटक से या एचडीएफसी से एचडीएफसी में भेजा गिफ्ट सिटी में, they will have to track. आरबीआई उनके पीछे पड़ा होगा डंडा लेके. Right? But once you send money from your HDFC to HSBC London or HSBC XYZ, कोई नहीं देखने वाला. Then the liability shifts from bank to client.
But सौरभ जी, the fact is कि मेरा बैंक अकाउंट अगर एक बार डॉलर में मैंने खोल लिया है गिफ्ट में, why would I also want to keep the money in gift idle for 6 months? I will definitely roll it over.
Sometimes situation comes up, but मैं अगर HSBC लंदन में खोल रहा हूँ तो वो situation की कोई probability नहीं होगी. Nobody is going to look back. समझो
मैं गिफ्ट सिटी में एक लिक्विड फंड में पैसा डाल दिया, तो I have still got a transaction, right?
तो चैलेंज ये है कि सब बोल रहे हैं गिफ्ट लिक्विड में डाल दो, बट किसी के पास अभी
सौरभ एक चीज समझ में जरूर आती है इस पूरी कन्वर्सेशन में कि डेफिनेटली जो इनिशियल डेज में ना अभी ये सेटलिंग स्टेज पे है. अभी जैसे हमने ये किया, बहुत सारे एडवाइजर लेवल पे प्रोडक्ट नॉलेज नहीं है, प्रोडक्ट इनिशियल स्टेजेस पे है. ये जो टीथिंग प्रॉब्लम्स है ना, तो वही है कि देयर इज एडवांटेज इन्वॉल्व इन दिस, बट उसकी सेटिंग अप में अभी वी आर नॉट 100% रेडी. लाइक वी आर रीडिंग इन द जो डोमेस्टिक सेगमेंट में हमारे पास जो प्रोडक्ट्स हैं, इवन डोमेस्टिक में भी हम ग्लोबल पीयर्स के कंपैरिजन में डिस्कस करें तो हम बहुत पीछे हैं इन टर्म्स ऑफ प्रोडक्ट इनोवेशन एंड अदर थिंग्स. सो वही एक जर्नी हम लोग कवर करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि ये प्रोडक्ट्स इंडिया में एग्जिस्ट करने लगे हैं. Yes, there are certain challenges. That's why it's slow pickup. Pickup is there, but little slow in that way. जैसे जैसे ये gradually pickup होंगी तो मेरे को लगता है कि लोगों का इंटरेस्ट और इंक्लिनेशन बढ़ेगा उस केस में.
Absolutely.
आनंद जी, आप अपना क्वेश्चन पूछें.
पूर्वा, एक चीज मैंने पूछनी थी कि जैसे ये टैक्स एग्जम्प्ट ये है अपना ये फाइनेंशियल जो आईआईएफसी सिटी है, तो जब इसमें टैक्स नहीं है, तो अगर इंडिया में टैक्स नहीं है तो टीडीएस भी नहीं होना चाहिए. तो ये थोड़ा एक कंफ्यूजिंग हो रहा है कि आप टीडीएस इंडियन गवर्नमेंट जो इंडियन अथॉरिटीज है वो टीडीएस डिडक्ट करेंगे और उसका वो सेट ऑफ लेंगे अपनी डोमिसाइल कंट्री में. तो अगर इंडिया में अगर एग्जम्प्ट है तो टीडीएस कहाँ से आ जाएगा?
सर, ये इसीलिए रखा है कि देयर इज एटलीस्ट दैट मच ऑफ, आप जिसको कंसेशन दे रहे हो, इसको क्या कंसेशन दे रहे हो, गवर्नमेंट को पता होना चाहिए.
बट ऐसा पहली बार ये रूल देखा है कि अगर द सर्विसेज आर एग्जम्प्ट इवन देन देयर इज टीडीएस.
बट नेट लॉस, सी द ओनली थिंग इज कि देयर इज नो नेट लॉस टू यू एज एन इन्वेस्टर.
आई एम नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट नेट लॉस और प्रॉफिट. उसको उसकी डोमिसाइल कंट्री में उसका पूरा बेनिफिट मिल जाएगा. अगर वहां पे उसका 12% टैक्स है, यहाँ पे 10% डिडक्टेड है, तो 2% उसको पे करना पड़ेगा. और अगर उसका टैक्स वहां पे 5% है, यहाँ पे 10% डिडक्ट है, तो उसको रिफंड भी आ जाएगा. दैट इज क्लियर टू मी. बट इनकम टैक्स में ऐसा रूल मैंने पहली बार कभी सुना नहीं है कि अगर
इसका कोई लॉजिक होगा बैकग्राउंड पे ना, कंप्लायंसेस पे, देन देयर आर पुटिंग दिस टाइप ऑफ स्ट्रक्चर ना, तो टू मेक इट मोर कंप्लायंस है ना, कि कंट्रोल रहे, तो उसके लिए टीडीएस का एक उन्होंने चेकलिस्ट पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू मेरे ख्याल से जो अभी हम डिस्कस कर रहे हैं ना, दे मे बी क्रिएटेड दैट फॉर्मेट कि वो ग्लोबली कंट्रोल्ड एनवायरनमेंट रहे।
आनंद जी होगा ये कि आपको सब कंट्रोल पहले दिन सबको नहीं देना है। तो as regulations mature, things will change. As of now, we will all have to agree that regulations are maturing as we speak, but not matured enough.
But is it sure that TDS is going to be deducted from the income?
Yeah, that is for sure. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So anyone else, any other question? So I hope मेरे ख्याल से Bharat, you have a question. Please.
Hi, Apoorva.
Yes, I
just wanted to understand, see, in terms of, I was investing in IIFC Dubai also. So
Correct.
there was no reporting in global income of any client, जब भी होता था, whenever it was happening. So the client may choose to report that to his CPA or may not choose to report also. But there was no reporting from the bank end or anyone. So in this case, from Gift City, you are saying, since there is no requirement of PAN card word as per my understanding, so I don't believe there is a case of TDS happening. One is this. And second, will there be any global reporting happening?
So
the data being shared with the respective country of native country. Sorry.
Yes, because see, if you want to remain in good books of international regulations, you will have to have some controls. Otherwise, what happens is, with all due respect, what has happened with, so think about it from a global investor's perspective. While a lot of investments have gone into, best of the family offices do not like today a jurisdiction like Mauritius, because that is tagged to something where there could be something fishy is a possibility. That is what the perception is, and perceptions are important. DIFC, the biggest advantage DIFC has is the legacy or the continuity of rules and regulations. Therefore, people are comfortable. But in terms of the quality of regulations or the strictness, DIFC has been on and off in terms of regulators or IFSC's books. In the past also, it has been put on grey list. GIFT does not want to be in that space, and therefore GIFT is starting to be at least a bit more stricter, more aligned to Singapore rather than being more aligned to DIFC.
Got it. Thank you.
So there is one question from Devesh. So he's asking ki apart from AIF, which category of investment products can be floated through Gift City route?
So the entire, the list that I showed for product categories, everything is possible, including, technically speaking, including mutual funds.
Okay, but the major chunk of money is
as of now, the major is in the AIF space, or what we call the fund management entities who have launched AIFs.
Okay. So I think that's over from now. I think thank you so much, Hardik and Apoorva. I think this is really valuable session for our community.
Thank you.
Few participants are not able to join because of that. I think in the daytime some work, other commitments. So we will share this recording, right? So on our LinkedIn page, right? So for everybody's convenience to go through again. Thank you, Apoorva.
Perfect.
Thank you, Hardik, and thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.